Hello everyone, my name is Sarafi and I'm happy to meet you all. And today we'll be discussing Illaoi, the Kraken Priestess. Illaoi is a very fun and very straightforward champion. And I just finished getting my first Lysandra win with her, so I've kind of figured out everything that I need to know about Illaoi to teach you guys what's going on. Now you might say, well Sarafi, if the character is straightforward, why do people need a guide on it? That's true. The reason that I want to highlight Illaoi in particular is because I know that a lot of people on my channel don't necessarily play this game all that much, and Illaoi I feel like is a great starting point for getting through some of the tougher adventures and playing without... It's like a good character to learn the game on, I think. So, Illaoi is a 4-mana 2/6 with Overwhelm. Already, that's a pretty good benefit to you. The character is difficult to kill, relatively cheap, and it has Overwhelm, which means that you will win games faster than other characters. Her ability is Attack, Spawn 1, then I gain power equal to your strongest tentacle's power this round. So, what is Spawn? Spawn is a keyword that says, for each spawn, summon a 1/1 tentacle, which is it's just a unit. It doesn't have any sort of special abilities. A 1/1 tentacle, or if you have one, grant your strongest tentacle +1/+1. So, if you just have Illaoi on the board and you don't have a tentacle yet, you attack with Illaoi. Illaoi summons a 1/1 unit, and then she gets +1 power, so she strikes as a 4-mana 3/6 with Overwhelm. That's not that amazing, but there are a lot of other cards and a lot of other abilities that allow you to spawn quite frequently. Her level up requirement is I've seen myself or my allied tentacles deal 15 or more damage. And that's an and or effect. So you combine the tentacles with Illaoi, and once you've hit 15, she levels up. Her leveled up form is Illaoi basically destroying a ship with her Nagakaboros. A 4-mana 3/7. Whenever you spawn, increase the spawn value by 1. That's from any source, including Illaoi herself. Then attack, spawn 1, fully heal your strongest tentacle, and I gain stats equal to its stats this round. So, Illaoi, if she attacks and you have maybe like a 4/4, then it gets raised up to a 6/6 because she spawns 1 and then she increases the spawn value by 1. So it gets +2/+2, and then if it had any damage, she would heal it, and then she gets both its attack and both its power and its health this round. So very beneficial. It's very easy to keep Illaoi alive with this setup, and she's basically just a strong, powerful, game-ending character. Now, in Path of Champions, you have a draft deck. So you start out with some pre-made cards that are all designed to fit your strategy, but you have to get random cards. You might be worried, what if I don't get any cards that spawn? And what if I brick on cards that I drafted as opposed to cards that had started in my opening deck? Definitely understand that. That's where the star power comes in. And this is something I feel like Riot should revisit with Pike, because they did it so well with Illaoi, they don't have to worry about Illaoi at all with the sort of RNG aspect. Here we go. So Illaoi's power is Prophet of an Elder God. When allies attack, spawn 1. There you go. It doesn't matter what card you draw, it doesn't matter what unit you have, it doesn't matter if it's even a Bilgewater character. As long as you have an ally that can attack, you will get at least 1 spawn per attack token. Great, that's a good way for you to start building your power before Illaoi even hits the board. And I really think that Riot should go back and look at this and just be like, as opposed to spending so much effort giving Pike all of Pike's cards lurk, they should just change Pike's first star to when allies attack, lurk. And then once they do that, then, you get the guaranteed lurk benefit. You'll still probably want to give some ability to give your other units lurker so that they get the benefit, but at the very least, this guarantees that there's not so much RNG triggering the actual ability itself, because, it's pretty frustrating to play Pike. even when Pike is such a consistent character with a few stars under his belt. When you miss the lurk, especially when you miss it 2 turns in a row, that's when it really feels like you're being cheated. Next up, we have Illaoi's second power, Test of Spirit. +1 starting mana. At the start of the round, grant the weakest enemy vulnerable. Now, that might sound a bit underwhelming compared to other 2-star powers, but it's actually quite beneficial. Because a lot of the times you want to attack into a unit to trigger your spawn. You potentially want to deal some damage with your tentacles so that you can start leveling up Illaoi. And being able to choose a target that's probably not going to kill one of your units is very helpful. Now, when Illaoi gets reworked into a 6-star character, I fully expect this to be changed. I'm guessing that they'll probably just change it to give you another little node that doesn't have like a little node outside of the 4-star nodes that says the tentacles have Challenger, have Skirmisher Saber, just like they did with Viego. And once the tentacle itself has Challenger, then they probably don't need to worry about giving like all units vulnerable, and they can do something else. But for right now, it works pretty well with keeping your tentacles alive, making sure that you can make some good attacks. And as far as Illaoi herself, I feel like Illaoi just needs Challenger, so I'm not too worried about Illaoi missing the vulnerable. Then we have Prophet of an Elder God 2. When allies attack, spawn 3. Now, Illaoi is a character that I feel like definitely needs her 3rd star. You can kind of get an idea of whether you like Illaoi or not based on the first 2 stars, but if you really want to progress through the Aurelian Soul adventure and the Lysandra adventure, you really need this ability in particular because it will make you win the game a lot faster. So being able to spawn 3 and get yourself either a 3/3 tentacle or increase the power of your tentacle by 3 with every single attack is going to be huge, and especially when you get Illaoi's level up, because once Illaoi is level 2, you attack with Illaoi, and even if there's no other triggers, just your star power and Illaoi, that's giving your tentacle +8/+8, because you have the spawn, well, no, I'm sorry, +5/+5, because the spawn value goes up by 1, and then it goes up by 1 again. That's 6, I'm sorry, it's 6, it's not 8, and it's not 5, it's 6, because the 3 goes up by 1 to 4, and then the Illaoi 1 goes up 1 by 2. I'm sorry, usually when Illaoi levels up, I just win the game immediately, so I haven't really paid attention to the actual number, but it is 6. So that's cool. Now, I mentioned her starting deck. Let's take a look at it. So, I have Illaoi at level 30, so I have all of the item cards. The first card that you get is called Watchful Idol. Watchful Idol is a 1-mana 0/4 with immobile. Immobile means the unit cannot attack or block. That's fine because you really don't want to attack or block with this unit anyway. It is kind of unfortunate that you can't trigger your rally effect, or not your rally, your spawn effect off of this, but still, the card itself gives you tentacles, so that's fine. At the start of the round, deal 2 to me and spawn 1. So at the base, this card will give you 2 tentacles over 2 rounds, which is pretty decent. But with the 2 item cards that you get, it becomes a 0/6 thanks to the Giant's Belt, and it becomes tough thanks to the Chain Vest. That is much, much better, because now, since it has tough, it only takes 1 damage every round instead of 2. So over 6 rounds, it will give you +6/+6 to your tentacle. Well, that's not likely to happen. You will probably win the game on turn 3 or 4, but it's nice to have as an option, especially if the game gets slowed down or if you brick and you don't get Illaoi, something like that. Next up, we have Answered Prayer. Answered Prayer is a 2-mana spell that's a slow spell, and it says spawn 2 or spend 5 mana to spawn 4 instead. Now, it's important to note that a lot of Illaoi's spells are slow spells. So Illaoi actually benefits pretty well from the slow but steady rare power, where every time you play a slow spell, you copy it with the same targets, and she's pretty good with that card. But for now, 2 mana to get a spawn 2 is decent. 5 mana to get a spawn 4 is fairly useful. Remember that you can bank spell mana. So for example, if you skip your turn 2 and then you go into turn 3, you can spend 3 regular mana and 2 spell mana to do this. So essentially by delaying your prayer 1 turn, you double the ability. That's pretty nice. But then the item card that you get from it is really good. It's called Hero's Horn, and it just draws you any champion in your deck. A random one, but that's basically like a 50% chance to get Illaoi if you don't already have her. Very nice to be able to kind of draw into Illaoi if your game start draw Illaoi didn't work. Now we have our first good unit, Grumble Slug. It's a 2 mana 2/3 with a tune. A tune is restore 1 spell mana on play. Now, Illaoi's tentacles tend to come from her spells, so getting a unit on the board and then basically paying half its cost back in spell mana is very useful. It gets a Studded Leather, which gives it +1/+1, so it's a 2 mana 3/4. Pretty nice. Also, this card is both Bandle City and Bilgewater, which doesn't mean a lot to you guys right now, but there are some monthly adventures and weekly adventures where you will either get the first card you play that's from Bilgewater costs 1 less, or the first card from Bandle City that you play costs 1 less. So having like multi-region cards is useful because it means that your character can be useful in multiple different types of adventures. This is a good card overall. Next up we have Eye of Nakakaboros. This is a 5 mana focus spell that spawns 2 and draws 2. A focus spell is a spell that you can play whenever you have the initiative, but not during combat and not in response to another spell. However, it will immediately resolve like a burst spell. So unfortunately, you cannot use Eye of Nakakaboros to save your tentacle from damage. For example, if your tentacle is being targeted by an effect that would deal it 5 damage while it has 5 health, you could not play this to raise it to a 7/7 to save it. But you could do it and then immediately attack with it. So for example, if you don't have a tentacle, you play this card, you draw 2 cards, you summon a 2/2, and then you immediately attack. Your power triggers, it becomes a 5/5, and your opponent has no way to respond to it before the attack starts. They can play a fast spell or something, but they're not going to be able to like play another unit or play a slow spell to try and intercept it. The item card that it gets is called Tear of the Goddess. The card costs 2 less, so it's a 3 mana card. That's huge. Having a card reduced from 4 or 5 mana to 3 mana, where you can play it entirely off of spell mana, is very nice. This synergizes very well with the Attune in the deck, and also you can play Sorcery, which is a common power that gives Illaoi 3 spell mana every round to potentially play your Eye of Nakakaboros on turn 1 and get some extra value before you decide what card you're going to play with your real mana. Pretty nice. Then we have Journeying Sandhopper. This is a 3 mana 4/3 with a tune. So 3 mana 4/3 that refunds 1 spell mana on summon. That's kind of okay to begin with, but thankfully it gets 2 very nice item cards. First of all is Pickaxe, which gives it +2/+0, and then it also gets Speed Wraps, which gives it Quick Attack. A 3 mana 6/3 with Quick Attack that spawns 3 when it attacks can be very nice. Especially since it's going to give you 1 extra spell mana back, so you can kind of make some adjustments. Maybe you have a combat trick that you picked up from another champion or from your spell chests. So getting the 6/3 out on turn 2, if you have the 2nd star, can be a really big swing turn for you. Then we have the Tentacle Smash. This is another slow spell. 3 mana. Spawn 2, and then your strongest tentacle and spawn 2, and then your strongest tentacle and an enemy strike one another. So if you have a 4/4, you can target your opponent's 4/4, and then you will make your tentacle a 6/6. Your 6/6 will strike and kill the 4/4. The 4/4 will strike back. Your tentacle becomes a 6/2. For example, if you don't have a tentacle, you'll summon a 2/2. It will strike whatever unit you target, and then you'll resolve that. Now, if the opponent has a spell shield unit, then you will still spawn the tentacle, but it will not strike the enemy and it will not be struck back. So if there are no units that your opponent has that can be killed safely, you could target a spell shield unit, take the spell shield off, and still get your strike. You still get your tentacle down without a strike. Unfortunately, there will be some instances where you need to play this card as a removal, and you just don't get to keep the tentacle afterwards because your opponent's unit is too powerful. I'm sorry, that's just going to happen to you. This is Illaoi's champion spell. So if you have Illaoi on the board and you have another copy of Illaoi in your hand, this Illaoi will turn into this with the additional effect to shuffle a copy of Illaoi into your deck. The item card that you get is called Hextech Fabricator. Grant your strongest ally a random common item this game. This will usually be your tentacle, because you've just given it +2/+2, so it'll probably be like a 5/5 as opposed to your other units that might be like a 4 attack or 3 attack. So giving your tentacle a random common item can be pretty good. You can get potentially Fearsome, which might allow you to attack over some tokens. You could potentially get Quick Attack to allow you to make some good trades. Maybe you get Tough so that you can endure more attacks. Maybe it's just a giant spell to give it an extra 2 health. You know, there are a few good common items. None of them are going to be amazing, but, you know, a little benefit to your tentacle is pretty nice. Next, we have the Sea's Voice. This card is really good. It's a 3 mana, 3/3, and it says attack, spawn 1, and give your strongest tentacle Overwhelm this round. Now, this is the only other unit in Illaoi's deck that has the attack spawn ability. So it's very important to understand how this works. If you have this card and Illaoi on the field at the same time, and you want to declare an attack, you want to attack with the Sea's Voice to the left of Illaoi. The reason why is because that will mean that the Sea's Voice spawn will trigger before Illaoi's effect triggers. And Illaoi's effect is where she calculates her power or her power and her health. So you want every instance of spawn to trigger before Illaoi, so that Illaoi gets the maximum amount of stats to herself. Additionally, the Sea's Voice gets Shadow Totem, which is play, summon an exact ephemeral copy of me. So you get 2 3/3s for 3 mana. Both of them give your tentacle an extra +1/+1, and both of them give your tentacle Overwhelm this round. Now, giving your tentacle Overwhelm is very, very important. It allows you to make some good damage to your opponent's Nexus. It could potentially allow you to kill your opponent even if Illaoi is not on the board, depending on how big your tentacle is. So the Sea's Voice is kind of like your secondary win condition if you don't happen to draw Illaoi, or if Illaoi gets killed. And then finally we have Buru Lookout. Buru Lookout is a 5 mana 4/3 with When I'm Summoned spawn 3. So it's a 5 mana 4/3 that comes with a 3/3 body additionally, or it just gives your tentacle +3/+3, and then she gets Chain Vest to give her Tough, so she can take 4 damage before she dies. Pretty solid. It's pretty rare to get a deck that doesn't have any mana discounts in it, but the mana discount, of course, is on the Eye of Nakakoboris. But kind of sad that this card didn't get like a Ancient Coin or a Nomad's Medallion, but I can understand it's quite a big swing, although usually the game will end before you can even play this card. Alright, now let's talk about relics. So, for Illaoi's setup, I recommend this build. And the good news is all 3 of these relics are guaranteed to you through completing quests. So the first is called Full Build. It's an epic rarity relic, and it gives Challenger, Tough, and Overwhelm. There's a little bit of overlap there because Illaoi already has Overwhelm, but giving her both Challenger and Tough is very important because it means that Illaoi can attack into whatever unit she needs to survive the first hit so that she can level up and then finish the game. Tough will additionally allow her to attack into a unit that has 6 attack and survive, so both those are pretty important. Next up, we have Crown Guard's Inheritance. When I level up, Rally. This is very nice for Illaoi because Illaoi will most of the time level up in combat. That means you've already softened up your opponent's board, you've probably already dealt some good damage to them because you have Overwhelm, and then you get to immediately attack again, and your tentacle has already had its attack raised, and Illaoi's attack is already raised. So the big problem with Illaoi is that her attack resets at the end of the turn. That can make it kind of hard to win the game, but if you rally while she already has high attack from her previous attack, you can then raise her attack even further and deal a large amount of damage. So, lastly, we have Green Glade Shadeleaf, which is a rare support item. Grant my supported ally Elusive. That's very, very big. So this will allow your tentacle to get elusive so that it can't be blocked except by a unit with elusive or sharp sight. A lot of decks don't even have an elusive or sharp sight unit. So if your tentacle is a 20/20 and it has elusive, then you're just going to hit your opponent's nexus for 20. That will usually win you the game. So a lot of times the game plays out as summon a unit, attack, spawn 3. Next turn, you kind of play a card that might spawn, like, during your opponent's turn, you'll play, like, Nagakaboros Idols that you can, or the Eye of Nagakaboros, so you can draw 2 and get 2/2, or you could play your Tentacle Slam, get 2 and a item card. Do something else to maybe you play your Buru Lookout if you have a discount on it so that you can spawn 3, whatever. Then when you get the attack token, you summon Illaoi. Illaoi attacks in. She gets like +8/+8 from your tentacle, so she's, or +8/+0, so she hits for like 10. Your tentacle hits for 8. She levels up, and you attack again. Now you get +6/+6. Now the tentacle is like a 14/14, and Illaoi gets another +14/14. She was already like a 10/6, so she becomes like a 24/20, and you have Overwhelm and Elusive, and you hit for like 40, and you win the game. The way that you get these full build, you get from beating Aurelian Soul for the first time. Crown Guard Inheritance, you get this from automatically from clearing Darius's 2-star campaign, which does require you to have Darius unlocked and to have his 2nd star unlocked, but you need to do that anyway. And then Greenglade Shadeleaf is from the same thing, but with Annie. So if Annie, you need to unlock Annie, you need to get Annie to 2 stars, and then you get the Greenglade Shadeleaf. As far as getting the slots, you will get your 3rd rare slot by getting Illaoi to level 30, and then the epic slot comes from using a forge item, which basically shows up every single week in the Emporium for 100 Stardust. Not hard to get. That's the deck, that's the character. My name is Serafi, and I was thrilled to have all of you with me.